I'm Ron Burke, Editor-in-Chief for GamingTrend.com. To help ensure that I don't give away too much of the game, I'll be covering our review of Armored Core 6, Fires of the Rubicon, showing just the second level of the game. As such, some of what I'll be talking about won't be shown on screen, so you can go in completely blind. It's best to discover some of these things on your own. Without further ado, let's get to it. Countless wars have blighted the history of humanity. Scarcity has always been a source of conflict, and coral could have been the spark that humanity needs to put it on a path towards unlimited energy. That is, until the fires of Ibis, a cataclysmic event that engulfed the entire star system in righteous fire and death. Rather than a path towards peace, it left behind a horrifying contaminant and was believed to be the end of coral. Now, 50 years later, coral has been detected on Rubicon 3, and once again the struggle to control this powerful substance has led to outright conflict. As corporations flock to control the mysterious substance, who's to say you can't make a righteous buck serving each and every one of them? In Armored Core 6, Fires of the Rubicon, you're the shell of a deceased augmented human grafted into the shell of an armored core and given the call sign C4621. Your first mission for your handler, Walter, is to land on Rubicon and get yourself into the mercenary system so you can start to make money. Scavenging the dead, you'll find a license on the corpse of somebody with similar ambitions, call sign Raven. An auspicious start thanks to their ignominious end, and fitting for what lies ahead. Positioned as a bit of a reboot for the series, Fires of the Rubicon is as much a reintroduction for returning players as well as a primer for newcomers, for which this is their first Armored Core game. 2013 was the last entry on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, so you'd be excused if you missed it last time around. The good news is that you don't have to have any prior knowledge with the previous games to get rolling here. The game is pretty good about filling in the gaps. Much of that will come from Walter, albeit with the help of a few friends along the way. The pilot's license we picked up gave us our in for exploiting all of these megacorps, resistance groups, and various factions operating in the region, taking all of their cold hard comb, the currency on Rubicon. Working as a mercenary means not particularly caring about who wants to control what. You're here to make money, and wow, will you be working for it. In terms of storyline, I'm immediately reminded of MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries. Various groups like Arquebus, Dafang, Balang, and others are eager to have you eliminate their rivals, disrupt their trade and research, and destabilize the region. The problem, of course, is that the other side is happily paying you to do the exact same thing, but for them. Graphically, and as you can see, Armored Core 6 Fires of the Rubicon has had a massive visual upgrade. Most of the fights take place in bombed-out ruins and dense cityscapes packed with the burning hulks of other mechs and accumulated debris. Each mech is unique, clearly assembled with similar parts that you can equip on your own AC. These parts are often tied to the specific manufacturer in the region, giving them a distinct visual look, which is an awesome attention to detail. On your own AC, you can get very close and very personal. Each part shows scratches, dents, and overall wear and tear on each. Explosions spray particle effects everywhere on impact, and you really feel the overall momentum of these behemoth mechs hurtling through the air, doubly so when you roar across the battlefield with a rocket-powered kick or sword strike. Thankfully, it's also well optimized for PC, which is important when you're moving at the speed as some of these fights occur. To that end, the PC version supports ultra-widescreen formats and 120Hz refresh rates. I'm very happy to say that this is some of Kota Hoshino's best work as a composer. His direction from game director Masaru Yamamura was to build tracks that evoke loneliness and nostalgia, and by all accounts, he's succeeded. For all the voices in his ear, ultimately C4621 is alone on the battlefield. The music is larger than life when you face off against larger than life objectives, and it tucks into the background during the quieter moments. The extra $10 gets you a handful of parts that'll give you a leg up on your first chapter of the game, though it really won't help you at the end of this chapter, as well as the entire soundtrack and a digital art book. If you're a fan of Hoshino's work, this is an easy upgrade. I don't think I'm spoiling anything here to say that Armored Core 6 Fires of the Rubicon is a tough game. It's a From Software title, so you can expect a fair bit of challenge, with some solid boss battle checkpoints to see if you're learning what the game has to teach. It doesn't take long before the game settles into the sort of punishment that the team is known to deliver in spades. Leaning on their experience from recent titles like the Dark Souls series, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and Elden Ring, the game is tight and engaging. Rubicon may not be a semi-open world like Elden Ring, but it settles into 3 pillars cleanly. First, engage the enemy, then observe their strengths and weaknesses, and then head back to the garage to build something that can exploit the gaps in between. If you're wrong, then correct your observations, rerun some missions to earn some comb, hit the store and buy some new gear, and then hit them hard all over again. The best demonstration of this came early in the game for me, the wall. Near the end of the first chapter, you'll face a boss called the Juggernaut in a mission assaulting a dam wall. At the top, an armored beast with massive forward-facing plates awaits you, and since my hands-on time with the game over a month ago, I could not wait to solve this problem. Hitting the Juggernaut head-on is an exercise in futility. Looking at my weapon complement, most of my weapons are forward-focused, including my missiles. Saving a bit would solve this problem as I have access to missile pods that fire upwards. I can also pick up a bazooka, something I didn't have the last time. And sure enough, observation, learning, properly equipping, and re-engaging did the trick. Not only did I crush this boss in record time by staggering him with missiles, I did it without taking a single hit. There are moments in Armored Core 6 when everything comes together and it makes you feel like a complete and total badass, and this is one of them. You'll want to savor these though, because tougher fights lie ahead. It's easy to look at the high-speed, omnidirectional mech-on-mech combat and expect that this is a game where pure adrenaline and the right gear will get you through, but that's just not the case. Many levels are about those white-knuckle moments where you're whipping through the air, pumping missiles into the sky, and rattling off machine gun rounds, or going toe-to-toe with a bulwark shield and sword in heated battle against other ACs. These moments in between those boss battles and the large-scale epic fights are easily my favorite parts, with the dead near tracks till you figure it out fights being my least favorite. Let's talk about the latter. At the conclusion of Chapter 1, I'd face my next tough fight. 2 in a row, in fact, but despite failing repeatedly, and for more time than I'd like to admit here, finding the right combination of gear, weapons, and tactics once again wins the day. It always does, but that's where you need to make a choice. All the moments between these boss battles are an absolute blast for beginners or rookies, and they're somewhat misleading on what lies ahead. These boss battles can suck the fun out completely, at least until you figure out what you're doing wrong. Now, I'm sure some joker will figure out how to speedrun all the bosses using nothing but a pool noodle and a banana taped to their ass cheeks for buttons, but that's just not me. I'm like most of you, and I have to figure it out, grind out the money for new gear, and quote, get good until I finally clear it. The frustration gives way to either elation at overcoming the massive hurdle, or relief that you'll never have to see this damn boss again. This will directly correlate with either a desire to push on to the next seemingly insurmountable challenge, or throwing your hands up and opting out of frustration entirely. If you like Souls-like games, you'll be right at home. But if you're a newcomer, you might find that this is all a bit too much. I'm in the latter group, but stick with me here. After spending literally days getting my teeth kicked in by one particular boss, I came at it with a completely different approach. Instead of trying to stay ultra-mobile and launching vertical missiles from afar, I switched it up. I strapped on a pair of very slow tank treads, mounted 2 bazookas and as much armor as I could pile on, and just stood my ground. Missiles blitzed my position while I just unloaded round after round, trundling out of the way for his larger attacks. By the time you read this, there'll be guides and videos to help you figure out all of these bosses, so you get to have your moment in the sun, albeit once you get the timing and movement. There's still a great deal of skill involved here, but without having to grind out all of the seemingly endless observation loop. In short, what I'm saying is that Armored Core 6 Fires of the Rubicon will reward you if you put in the work and stick with it. I know that's a little like saying, hey, this book gets good halfway through, but for me, I'm happy to read the guides. I'm sure some of you are dying to insult me in various ways for my approach, but if games are not for enjoying on our own terms, I don't know what purpose they serve. Engage this game in whatever way suits your tastes. I mentioned that this game is omnidirectional, and that's a very big part of what's different from any other FromSoft game. Being able to attack a foe from nearly any angle makes it feel very different from the likes of Sekiro or Dark Souls. It also means that those same foes can attack you in similar ways. Taking to the skies is not a cure-all, and you'll find that some foes can stay airborne the entire time. Sometimes the answer is take to the skies, and sometimes the problem is that enemies have this same idea. Frankly, I enjoyed this gameplay in a way I never did with the ground level games. Dodging and rolling just doesn't have the same impact as rocketing through the skies and then juking with high-powered rockets, and I suspect I'm not alone. Occasionally, you're going to run into situations that aren't dictated by preparation, luck, or skill. The enemy's just being a complete coward. Even the very first boss, a PCA helicopter, likes to run outside the boundaries. You'll not be able to race towards him with a blade because you'll run into a red virtual tape boundary that says, sorry, I'm going to hide back here and hit you even though you can't do anything about it. It's poor design in an otherwise great game full of engaging moment-to-moment visceral combat. You'll feel the gaminess of that moment, and you'll wonder why FromSoft couldn't have just put the boundaries out a little further, or forced the boss to color inside the lines, and leave it to FromSoft to put a damn boss fight on the tutorial level. One of my favorite parts is the AC assembly bay. Your armored cores are split into inner, frame, and unit. These are then subdivided into arms, legs, head, core, booster parts, generators, and more. A total of a dozen slots awaits your customization, and each makes a world of difference in terms of gameplay. Thin, reversed hinge legs are great for jumping and speed, but they're too thin to take too many hits. Stockier humanoid-like legs are slower and use more thrust to get airborne, but can take more damage. All of it interplays into an energy utilization and weight balance. You can also paint each and every part and the AC as a whole. Adding decals to your head, core, arms, and legs is also possible, but I'm more excited to see what players come up with, as there's a custom emblem system. Similar to something we've seen in games like Forza or Gran Turismo, you're provided layers and basic shapes to make whatever magic you can imagine. An image system also lets you upload your own decals or download those of other players. There's a depth here that I'm sure creative folks will turn into virtual works of art to paint on your armored core. I look forward to all of the waifu parades that will inevitably appear on this marketplace. There is another way that you can engage with Armored Core 6 Fires of the Rubicon, if you're into the PvP aspects of the game, although not directly. Once you've proven your worth by downing 3 AI opponents, and wow, do I only wish that one of them would be G1 Michigan, that is the dumbest caricature of a military officer I've ever heard, and I've served with some real oxygen thieves in my own time in the military. I'd love to be able to shut him up with bullets. Anyway, you'll unlock the multiplayer arena. Here, you can face off against your fellow meat puppet players, testing your mettle based on the rankings of other players. In the beginning, this is going to be rough as everyone establishes their initial rank, but it should shake out in a couple of days post-launch so you can fight similarly matched meatbags. I wish you the best of luck in the arena, but there's a reason that you're going to want to fight with your fellow humans: OST chips. OST, or OS tuning, is split into several sections: system unlocks, core expansions, attack control, and damage control. You'll gain all these unlocks with OST chips by fighting in the arena. Doing well earns you chips, and each upgrade costs between 1 and 5 of them. Assault armor, for example, unlocks an armor that creates a pulse explosion centered on your AC, canceling out enemy fire and creating an area of effect shockwave. If there was a boss that, perhaps, launched a massive amount of missiles in all directions, this could be helpful. The first update lets you install it, while subsequent upgrades let you unleash it more often with an additional charge. Most of the core expansions provide new tricks up your sleeve, where system unlocks are more tweaks to the formula. Manual aiming is exactly what it says on the tin, allowing you to aim more precisely. This requires a great degree more skill, but if you've got the chops, you can shoot the wings off a fly, so to speak. Weapon Bay unlocks the ability to swap out your shoulder-mounted weapons with an additional hand weapon. Weight control allows you to launch a mech when it's overburdened. Each of these are useful in their own right, as are the ones that make your repair kits more effective, mitigate damage, or increase yours. You'll have to fight for those chips, so choose wisely. You can spend a small bit of comb to revert your choices, so retrofitting never really feels like too much of a penalty. It's hard to estimate how long Armored Core 6 Fires of the Rubicon really is, but From Software estimates somewhere between 50 and 60 hours of game time. And now that time estimate is largely dependent on your overall skill level. If you bounced off the various Souls games for difficulty, I have some good news and some bad news. You will die, and that's just a fact. That said, when you do, you'll likely be restarting at one of the various checkpoints throughout the level. Better still, you'll come back with your 3 repair kits, no matter how many you had when you hit said checkpoint. The fights are tough. Yes, it can be downright overwhelming. You're gonna die a lot, and that's part of the loop. Every boss has a weakness, and finding it could be exactly the fun you're looking for. That said, if that loop of observing, tweaking, and re-engaging over and over and over doesn't intrigue you, then the move to omnidirectional combat isn't going to change your mind. That said, if you've enjoyed other From Software games and their challenge, this is a whole new way to engage with that style. Ultimately, Armored Core 6 Fires of the Rubicon is, at its core, a Souls game, with all that implies. The twists on the gameplay loop with omnidirectional movement and the upgrade system creates a new dynamic that's enough to keep me locked in, but it's not without a great deal of swearing and gritting of teeth. If you aren't a Soulsborne fan, Fires of the Rubicon is unlikely to convert you, but if you're into mech games like I am, it could be just enough to pull you across the line. That said, if you're a fan of previous FromSoft games, this game is magnificent. It's the culmination of every game the team has made in the last decade and a brilliant reinvention of the series. While it may be very hit and miss for me, the hit parts hit in a way that you won't find anywhere else. Now I've just got to figure out whatever magical combination I need to get past the miss parts so I can get back to the fun. White Knuckle brilliant Souls-like action coupled with a movement style not seen in the genre for an entire generation resurrects a blast from the past in a whole new way. If you're a fan of the genre, this game is pure punishing fun with all that implies. If not, it's unlikely to convert you. In either case, Armored Core 6 Fires of the Rubicon is a brilliant title that breaks the mold on the genre in a whole new way. We give it a 90%. I'm Ron Burke, Editor-in-Chief for GamingTrend.com. Thanks for joining us for this review. Check out some of our other previews. It's a very busy season right now. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you again very soon.